Taoiseach, this government is clearly in panic mode. Your new housing plan was supposed to be published in July and there's still no sign of it. Instead, what we've seen is a succession of measures that all have one common feature: throwing more public money at developers in the desperate hope that the market will deliver. We've been here before and we know how it ends: soaring house prices and rent prices and a broken housing system. Taoiseach, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that there is more disastrous news in housing today. Construction activity is down again for the 5th time in a row. And just to be clear, your target for this year, for 2025, is 41,000 homes. We're now halfway through October, so we have a pretty good idea of where it's going to go. And according to the Central Bank, you're going to miss your housing targets again, this time by 8,500 homes. So, Taoiseach, people are really sick of hearing you say that your approach to housing is working despite every metric proving otherwise. At some point, this government is going to have to face reality. Your housing policies have failed. We need new thinking. The state needs to step up and deliver affordable homes. It needs to radically change course, like your own Housing Commission has recommended. Because the fact of the matter is, your approach hasn't worked, it's not working now, and it's not going to work. Budget after budget, people in their 20s, 30s and 40s are looking on, still in their childhood bedrooms, missing out on milestones, relationships, career opportunities, having a family, unable to plan their future or put down roots in a community. All while they look at headlines about record budget surpluses. The disconnect is just staggering. Taoiseach, people have been listening to governments promising to address the housing disaster for more than a decade now. So I understand that many people out there just feel despair and hopelessness. But there are solutions. The Social Democrats have a huge range of policy proposals that could make a real difference, like the Homes for Ireland saving plan to use some of the €160 billion just sitting in deposit accounts earning no interest, our plan to build a modular homes factory to turbocharge the delivery of affordable homes, but instead of adopting them or even examining them, you'll just plough on with the same old failed approach. Taoiseach, my question is, when is the government going to publish your housing plan, and is it planning to do anything different?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
First of all, I would reject completely the analysis of the Deputy. I mean, we've been listening to a lot of empty rhetoric on the side of the opposition in respect of housing. And as I said earlier, housing supply, it's not where we want it to be, but it's significantly way up on where it was 5 years ago on an annual basis. And the second quarter this year were very high figures, the highest since 2008. No, they need to be. And we need to get to 50,000 houses. Now, your savings plan isn't going to do that this year, next year, the year after. Let's not pretend it would. There are factories out there in terms of modern methods of construction. I have visited them. So just sort of saying we would create a new factory for modular isn't going to change the dial. And they're out there. Modern methods of construction is now fully integrated into our house building operations. And we're continuing to work on that because it is an important dimension to housing. The Housing Action Plan will be published certainly within the next 5 to 6 weeks. But of course, we didn't wait for the Housing Action Plan. We've brought in a range of measures since the beginning of the year, most of which you have opposed. As you've opposed most measures in respect of housing, from the Planning Act right through. And this budget allocates significantly more resources again on very substantial state investment in housing. 20% increase in overall funding to housing. Like I heard Deputy Battery talk about a marketified commodity. Name of God, it's the state is investing overwhelmingly in housing today. The state. It's the state is investing. And look, that's across a broad sweep of housing policies. What has to happen is the state funding has to be balanced by private sector finance. I know you hate that. You've an instinctive ideological opposition to that, which I disagree with. Until we get a significant financial investment from the private sector in housing, we're not going to get to 50,000. The state can't sustainably finance on its own the building of 50 to 60,000 houses for the next decade. So strategy and policy must reflect a continuance of unprecedented government investment, but complemented and supplemented by private sector investment. That is the clear strategic approach of government. And it's not panic mode, it's anything of the sort. But it's relentless and it's focused. And we're not going to be sidetracked by populist short-term declarations or announcements or sound bites that look good. But sound bites don't build houses, Deputy. And I am absolutely committed, along with the Minister and the entire government, to dealing with the housing issue as a constant priority. And that is reflected in the budget. And yes, we didn't go the income tax route and other routes. Why? Because we wanted a 20% increase in housing. We wanted a €50 capitation grant for primary schools, which makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
So we went
Deputy
and we
Kearns.
wanted to build infrastructure,
Thank you,
water,
Taoiseach.
grid, which are central to housing.
Time is
That's
up,
what
Taoiseach.
enables us to build more houses into the future.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Water, grid, public transport, the
Deputy
fundamental
Kearns.
pieces of infrastructure that make house
Taoiseach, your
building
time is
possible.
up. Thank you. Deputy Kearns.
You say you're not in panic mode, Taoiseach, but it does sound like you're panicking, and you've yet to answer my question in terms of when will the government produce their housing plan. It is still
One
delayed.
voice, deputies, please.
There's acknowledging the role of the private sector, Ceann Comhairle, which we do, and then there's completely and utterly relying on them, which is what you do. This government goes far beyond acknowledging the role of the private sector and goes to the extent of actually paying them to build luxury apartments that they've already built. It is quite simply unbelievable. The dominance of private developers in the housing sector keeps housing prices high because, of course, they demand large profits. That is the nature of the private sector. To build affordable housing in Ireland, we need to invest in the state construction of housing. We need to build up the not-for-profit sector. We need to produce modular homes at scale. Without taking these steps, without acknowledging that your approach isn't working, nothing will change. So, Taoiseach, I acknowledge that sound bites doesn't build houses. You need to acknowledge that your government isn't building enough houses. So, Taoiseach, ask my question again. Are we going to do anything from this government different in this plan, and when will you produce it?
Taoiseach to respond, please.
Could I just say, first of all, $4 billion alone in current expenditure provided to housing in 2026. That's an increase of $600 million. And key elements of that will go to the homeless services to ensure that local authorities can provide emergency accommodation. Will it have to be done? For God's sake, you have to provide it. No, it's not. Don't be so cynical. You'll be the very first guy condemning us if we didn't.
Please.
Homeless prevention measures, tenancy sustainment measures and so on, and enabling people to exit emergency accommodation as quickly as possible. Fund over 5,000 new homes under the Social Housing Current Expenditure Programme. We continue to support over 40,000 existing homes under the scheme. 470 million to support additional 7,000 new tenancies, presently some 50,000 tenants. Significant numbers moving to more permanent social housing. Over 28,000 transfers to other forms of social housing have taken place. And then we have the rental accommodation scheme. And then in terms of capital on the NDP, well over 7 billion allocated capital to housing.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
That's not soundbite, that's not rhetoric. That is unprecedented investment in housing, and that's reflected this year as well.
Deputy Paul Murphy.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Taoiseach, Irish households are being ripped off by electricity companies. That isn't just how they feel about it, it's a fact. We have it in black and white from the International Energy Agency.